You're watching Single Process with Jo and Barb, a video series bringing you the experts to help you go from a we to a me. We are going to discuss tweens and divorce today.
Yeah, tweens. So I have, you know this obviously. Hello everyone. I have 19 and 20-year-olds, and then I have 10 and 11-year-olds. And I was so eager to do this segment because the reactions to divorce from the two groups are so vastly different.
Absolutely. And it's not just the reaction to the news of the divorce, but it's how they cope in the years that go by.
Yeah, the
and
communication.
Right.
Yes.
And knowing what's really going on with them.
Yeah, and we have a fantastic therapist named Amanda Craig. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has very specific things to look for. So that's what we're going to talk about. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what's a tween? Define that category to start with.
So it's the tough age because it's out of the elementary and before the high school.
Yeah.
So it's the kids that are in that kind of 10 to 12 age group.
Which, I mean, in this day and age is like full-on teen.
Right.
Because they're so advanced with the social media and all that. So my kids know way more than I would think they know at 10 and 11.
And that's so tricky because then we expect more of them. But
That's a really
really,
good point.
they're tweens, they're not
tweens.
teens.
Right.
So what are the characteristics of general tweens before we get to the impact of divorce on them and behaviors to look for?
So tweens is an interesting age because they're getting out of elementary school. They're very aware of social norms and social expectations. They're aware of what their kids' families and what others are look like and what they're into. And they're also starting to develop an emotional awareness, just starting though. So they don't necessarily have language for feelings and emotions, but they definitely are feeling them.
Okay.
That's what you just said, the language. What language can you help them get? What are they going to do, and what do you really want to draw out of them?
So often in the tween years is when you hear complaints about physical ailments. Mm-hmm. And often there's a kind of an anxiety or depression or an emotional experience happening.
So the stomach ache, the headache, I've seen that happen.
Yes.
I can't go, I don't feel well, yes.
Okay.
It could be very general. And really they're going through some sort of nervousness maybe, or maybe feeling down or melancholy, or maybe feeling pressure at school or with homework, but they don't know the language yet to talk about stress. And so they'll often talk about it through physical.
Okay. So we
Yeah,
know
so
this.
what do you do
So
about
as a
that?
parent,
How
you
do
see
you
this.
draw it
Yes.
So what we want to do is help give them language. So when they say, I have a stomach ache, I'm not going to school today, we'll often park with them in the place of, you're going to school, you have to go to school, you've missed school, and we focus on kind of the content. More, we want to drop into that experience with them. You have a stomach ache today. You know, what's going on? You didn't talk about that last night. Did you get it this morning when you woke up?
God, that's so good, Amanda. I'd like to bottle that.
Yeah. And are
That's
they
not what I
likely to then follow into opening up about what's really going on? You see that?
Sure. So if we're asking, tell me about your stomach ache, tell me when did it start, what do you think? Often they'll say, yeah, my stomach hurts, it started hurting last night when I was doing my homework.
Okay.
Oh, we've just got a huge cue.
Anxiety about school.
Right? Or, you know, I just don't, or they'll say, I just don't want to go to school today. Oh, now we know it's something about school today.
Okay.
So in the divorce context, what we often hear is that sort of behavior coming up when they've got to change houses. Even if they're in great relations with both parents, just moving from home to home is so disruptive.
That's
It
a great way to
is.
put it.
Or they're missing out on their friends, or they're missing out on activities. How do we, sort of lessen the anxiety around that?
But still enforce that they have to spend time with the other parent to do that.
Yeah. So we want to help them name that. The biggest one I hear from kids is they leave things at one house and need it. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of that they have to think about and think ahead. And it does bring up anxiety. And so it's giving them words. I know you're so disappointed that you missed that today. Or I know it's you're feeling sad because you're not in your home and you're in this other home that you're not used to.
That's really good.
And you can give them the answer or you can ask them in questions. I wonder if you're feeling a little sad today because you're not familiar with this house yet.
Yeah.
And what it does is plants a seed for them to now start identifying a word with a feeling they're having.
I made a joke with my daughter the other day that you would tell me is so inappropriate. But I said, you got to stay at Dad's because I need to have a guy over here and he can't be walking around
Barbara.
our house. And she said, Mom, that is so inappropriate. This divorce has done untold damage to me because of comments like this. Does it? I mean, tell me, as a therapist, you're Barb, I shouldn't have said that. But like, there's probably a fine line to how much joking you should do with your kids about.
I mean, it depends on where they are. Some kids will take the divorce really, really hard.
Yeah.
Again, if the kids are talking a lot about physical ailments, that's a great time to ask them about how are you feeling about this? Do you feel sad sometimes? Sometimes you feel like crying. Other kids, if it was a really conflictual marriage, there's some relief because they're finally out of the fighting.
Well, and they might feel guilt about that too.
And then they might feel guilty. So again, it's kind of asking the questions or planting the seeds.
Okay.
Do you ever, how are you feeling? Some kids feel guilty about, like they had something to do with the divorce.
Yeah.
You know you didn't, right?
Right.
Oh,
You've
that's
got
a
to
great
reinforce
line.
that with the kids all
The time. Because even if we say it once, they'll still start recording, well, my parents separated and then they divorced and there was that time we were fighting and arguing, me and my siblings, and that probably put pressure on them. And so, right, they'll go back to that recording. So we want to tell them often, it wasn't your fault. And some kids feel guilty, but I really want you to know that, it was a big decision we had to make, and it's not that you did anything wrong.
Yeah, these are great words to have. Any last minute advice on tweens and how to deal with them?
Well, the one thing I'd watch for is if their behaviors drastically change. So if they seem to be withdrawing more or missing school more, or their grades change, or their eating habits or sleeping habits change, those are the things we want to watch for that tell us that they're probably going through more than what they're talking about. Therapy's good. There's support groups for teens where they can meet other teens. Those can be super helpful because then they don't feel so alone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Great advice on dealing with tweens. For more information on this topic and others, check us out at thesingleprocess.com.